Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Alex and Sam Green here with your weekly fishing reports. So we got a lot of exciting news,
Yes,
and
we
it
do.
was the opening of Rockfish
We're
this
back.
past week. So it's back for you guys here, and we got some exciting news. So what have you heard about out there, Sammy?
Rockfish, if you're going to jig, at least majority of your fish are still north of the bridge, up by Swamp Point. Really, they're kind of on both sides of the bay there. You go Swamp Point, mouth of Patapsco has been really affected around 7 foot and all areas like that. And the cool thing about that is not only do you have shallow water areas, we can fish both shallow water or we can jig or troll in deeper water right now. They're kind of all spread out.
Right. So a lot of options.
Oxygen's getting a little better, so some of those fish can push out into that deeper water so you can troll for them or jig for them opposed to just casting in the shallows, which we've been doing a lot of because of the bad water we've had up here. If you're going to cast in shallow, obviously we have topwater is always the most fun way to do it. Fishing a little bit smaller because our bait's still kind of smaller. So moving to fall, we might step up to some bigger baits. These are just little 3-4 inch poppers and then a nice spook. If you have a little ripple on the water, I like to fish the popper. If your water's flat calm, I don't think you can beat a spook. Another thing is, after that, sunlight, most of that's come on up. Maybe 2 hours after sunrise, you're going to want to transition to just casting baits, so things like Yozuris, any sort of jerk bait, or even like a 4 or 5 inch paddle tail is always another good bet for you. And trolling as well. A lot of guys are starting to troll more. That fall trolling is really starting to wind up, whether you're trolling umbrella rigs or doing tandems. There's all sorts of options for you there. You're trying to get them down, I'd say middle or water column. Most people are trolling anywhere from 20 to 35 feet max.
Just a couple things for some of the areas where, just touching up on this, that we're getting reports and some of the hot areas for topwater that I've been seeing just throughout social media and pretty much just reports has been actually inside the Patapsco. A lot of guys from the inner harbor all the way out to the Key Bridge fishing early mornings, afternoons, just on some of those discharge areas, any kind of current, any kind of, there's a lot of points here by the Baltimore port where there's, like deep areas close to shallow water. So that's, the typical classic rockfish points that you want to fish, and that's been hot there. But anywhere in these general areas, for example, the classic Bay Bridge rock piles early in the morning, all those general areas. Now, like Sammy was saying, a lot of options and a lot of things going on with rockfish right now. There's no one hot thing that everybody's doing right now. Your options are pretty much wide open to a lot of things. It's pretty much kind of down to finding the fish and really whatever you want to do.
You catch jigging, casting lures, or trolling. Whatever you're comfortable with, you can pretty much do. I think we touched on bait, but obviously, fishing the bridge pylons is always going to be a good bet. Soft crab, if you can get smaller white perch or spots, always a good bet as well.
We had some reports of some good-sized fish actually on the eastern side pilings the last 2 days of people catching, upper 20s and a couple 30s right on that side. The only thing with that is, remember, there's bluefish around. So if you're staying from the Bay Bridge south, you're always going to have to sacrifice a couple of those spots to the bluefish. And same thing with trolling. Those bigger spoonbrellas will work perfectly. Me personally,
been hot for most people.
Me personally, I will kind of use those south of the bridge, and then as I'm working my way up, I will kind of switch to some of these soft plastics, just a little bit better for that. But other than that, we have some great stuff with panfish.
As always this time of year.
And this is the typical pattern for perch and all those panfish. Jumbo size spot. That's what I've been seeing a lot up there.
A lot of people have been catching huge spots.
Croaker has not been a great year for croaker so far, just as the past few years. But it's one of those things where a lot of barely keeper size croaker in this general area, and even south, it's been surprising where it's been a struggle to find keeper croaker. But all the guys, shore fishing from around here, are catching some massive spot. At some points, I keep hearing people, it's kind of getting hard to catch your bait size spot.
That's what I've heard too. But I mean, you can still have a ton of fun on perch. We're still in that summer perch pattern where really wherever you want to fish with them, whether it be in deeper water out on the main stem of the bay and 15, 20 feet hard bottom, or you can push back in creeks and catch them in a foot of water. I mean, they're everywhere, just like they're going to be. And hopefully that'll last for another 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how that cold and what they want to do there.
Temperatures have been changing here a lot now, and it seems like we have some colder temperatures coming up.
Evenings.
So that's going to be working on our favor here. Still a lot of people catching puppy drum, mixing with those, guys fishing shallow structure for perch, and not a surprise, but we're starting to see a couple more almost keeper size puppy drum up here. Remember, check out the regulations for that. I believe it's 18 to 28, and then 1 fish per person up in this area.
First time in my life people have caught keeper redfish outside of the mouth of the magazine, which is pretty crazy.
So it's amazing. You know, if you're working through that and you want to get one of those, just, you know, stick to that shallow water, rocky areas, and you will find some of those fish. Now, what's the insight on some of the mackerel and bluefish?
Mackerel are pretty much beginning to push south. Your tail end of what we're seeing, high concentrations of your mackerel, is going to be, you know, Poplar Island, and then you push down south. And they're still going to have a long ways pulling out of the bay. Long time to catch them. But if you're up here, you're going to want to run down to Poplar Island. You might have a few fish are caught towards, you know, Thomas Point area like that, but primarily your high concentrations, if you want to cast for them especially, you're going to want to push south. Bluefish are still mixed in. A lot of people are catching bluefish all the way up to Bluff Point area. So the bluefish probably are going to hang around a little bit longer than the mackerel, as they usually do. They're a little bit better with the cooler temperatures and cleaner water.
They're also fish to fight too. I mean, you know, that. So yeah, touching with that, same thing. I've been getting reports of and just seeing in general. It's been pretty much like you said, highest concentration I've seen too. It's pretty much what you just said, and. Couple of things that I heard was pretty much mouth of the chop tank, and chop tank. Some of those areas were pretty good. So let's move a little bit down south, and you know, pretty much down there, it's your big redfish, cobia stuff. Talking to a couple of buddies that are running charters out of there, they're not catching many cobia, but they're catching that surprise, you know, almost keeper size cobia down towards 72, 72A, and 70 down south towards the middle grounds. You know, the northern middle grounds, and the southern tip of those areas have been okay.
As far as the bull drum, I think that's kind of started to slow down, at least somewhat, or quite a bit. You know, a week ago, I mean, I don't know how many 40, 50-inch red drum were caught, but it seems like at least last week or this week. It's definitely slowed down.
It's more, quite a bit. Taking a little bit more to search for them and whatnot. Now, exciting news for Ocean City this past week here, with a little more of a mix of different species kind of becoming more abundant out there. And a couple of the things I've seen have been the sheepshead right at the inlet and right at the you know, pretty much frat 50 bridge pilings. A lot of guys using sand fleece, those tall jigs with peeler crab like we mentioned last week, but it seems like they were really getting on them this week.
And not to mention, I think I've heard of a lot of keeper tog caught inside the inlet, which is typically not what you see here in the summertime. You might have some different parts of the year, but when it comes to summertime, you rarely see keeper tog. So that's also another thing, and you're going to catch them doing the same techniques.
A mixed bag and some triggerfish too that I've seen.
Triggerfish, I've heard a couple.
Now, if you're going to venture out there and get out on the boat and hit out there, mahi are pretty much kind of getting in tight, and we're talking about that 12, 15-mile range. Seen a couple of reports from some of the head boats on there catching mahi, and those boats don't go out too far.
They're going, you know, 8 to 18 miles out, you know, max, and most of those guys are catching them just on the wrecks they're fishing, you know, 100 feet of water or less.
Mixed with some flounder and whatnot, but there's also been a push of Spanish mackerel out there in the ocean front.
A lot of king mackerel too.
So it's that time of the year to get out there in the ocean and get a mixed bag of everything. So
a lot of sea bass too. And touch on the wrecks are hot with sea bass. You know, as they usually are this time of year.
Some weak fish and whatnot. So, but yeah, the Ocean City has been picking up here, and you know, your marlin bites okay out there. 2.5 push up north to Lake Jersey waters and whatnot. Let's touch on some of the snakehead bite, which this past week has been pretty productive for most people. You know, for pretty much fishing mornings, afternoons. Your topwater baits and your typical patterns have been pretty good for down Blackwater and some of the areas up north with some pretty massive bass. We had a full moon this past 2-3 days or whatever it's been, and there's been some massive bass being caught out there in that Blackwater region and some of the flats.
I think I've seen 3 20+ inch bass caught out there.
Typical baits, and this is like your go-to live targeting mouse here, and pretty much what that is any bait that has a walking motion. That's weedless. That's going to buy you some extra bites. We also have the SS Custom snake frog here with the heavy wire, and that little spinner seem to produce some fish too out there. And your just typical pattern, which is going to be your paddle tails here with a weedless 1/8 of an ounce swim bait hook, and Sammy's holding there.
We got the new SS spinners in, and I think this is by far the nicest spinner I think we've found so far. I mean, you really can't beat this. It's got a nice, sharp, stout hook on it, paired up with a little bit more weight than most people do.
Right.
But that compensates because you have the bigger
blade.
blade, so it's going to draw up in the water column, and it's got a lot.
So Blackwater guys,
get
get down there, producing some fish, and as we get into this fall bite, you know, the snakes turn on again. And you know, we have some great bass fishing mixed in down there for all you guys fishing bass. Other than that, move up north and try to adventure into some of those new waters. Now, crabbing. Have you heard anything about crabbing, Sammy?
Yeah, crabbing's been great. You're starting to push a little bit into deeper water than we have been the past week, with the water kind of turning over as we have them cooler evenings. And, you know, crabs are so plentiful right now. You don't need razor clams, but they always help. You can get away with chicken or whatever else you want to use as bait. But it's been pretty consistent on all your west side rivers. Eastern shore rivers down south has been really good. I haven't heard too much from areas like the Chester being great, but at least up here on the west side, we're doing pretty well.
Okay, so now a couple reminders, guys. It is Labor Day weekend.
Oh, yeah.
We are staying open later until 7 Sunday. We are going to be closing at 5 for Labor Day, so me and him can go fishing for a little bit.
Couple hours.
A couple hours at least, right? But yeah, remember, come by, get all the stuff you need, because the weather's looking great for this weekend and pretty much Labor Day. So, you know, get out there, catch some fish, save some fish for us, and, you know, you guys have a good one.
Have a great one, guys. Thank you.